It was my first experience on television. My first shot was I was a waiter, like a dodgy waiter in the establishment. It was just a continuing role. It wasn't major, but it was over a couple of series. And I had a long-stemmed flute of champagne. It was a windy day in South Auckland, somewhere in the Pukekohe area, and the camera was starting on the flute and then craning up to show all the 100 people that were there, all the extras and the principal cast, and I was the guy who kicked it off. Of course, knowing that, and this windy, and this thing's blowing about, and the art department guy had put a little napkin on it, so it was just really unstable. And of course, action, and I take a step, it falls over, gets me all wet, and I'm like, everything had to go back. I had to change my shirt, so it wasn't a very auspicious start to it. But it sort of gave me the idea that when you're dealing with, because there is a lot of money at stake, because it's so expensive to make TV and film, you've really got to find ways to prepare and not allow your nerves or self-awareness to get to you. Robin Lang and Galen Preston were very inclusive of me. I mean, I played Red, an American GI, on my way to Guadalcanal or wherever it was, and he gets Sonia Davies pregnant and he dies away. And it was most important, I think. They wanted that element of romance. They wanted the people to see it, and especially the women to see how seductive these GIs were when it was so exotic, and their blokes were away, and there were scenes sitting on a beach and walking on the beach up at Paikokariki, and just an element of excitement, a little bit. It was a brilliant time before the war sort of really kicked off for these guys, so you're aware of it, but like I said, I just really wanted to do my best work and was still learning. I'd only been out of drama school for a couple of years by that point, and hadn't done a lot of screens, so I just had to trust that they knew what they were doing, and they gave the impression that they did, and I think the finished product was really of a very high standard. I'd been doing Angels in America, which was set in New York, and so I'd sort of developed that my American accent was a little bit more New York Jewish than anything else, and so that was what I did. And so when I got offered the part, I think that was what I took it, and the director sort of said to me, I like the Woody Allen take on it, and I went, okay, well, that's a bit of an idea. So we really, as opposed to getting, the fact that he was a dark, king of the underworld, it was quite a good opportunity just to play him like a little bit of a neurotic Woody Allen who was disappointed that as opposed to being, god of the sea, he had to be god of the underworld, it was unfair. I think for everyone in New Zealand to have Pacific Renaissance come out and set up these, for them, were quite cheap productions, but for us, they were massive. They were responsible, I believe, in many ways for the ongoing success of fantasy shows in New Zealand. A lot of the crew went off from there down to work with Peter Jackson and Lord of the Rings, and they know how to do a lot in that classic New Zealand thing, number 8 fencing wire, and so big setups, exciting, learning how to do blue screen stuff and forced perspective stuff, and again, it was just cracking the world open a little bit more and just giving you an idea, and also having many more people and a much bigger production, knowing that it could go somewhere if you got it right. Maybe not a spin-off series like Lucy, but at least more work on at that time pretty well paid work. The pressure was higher, so that's where you learn that experience makes you deal with pressure better. A lot of people, including myself at the time, thought, wow, that would have to be the best job in the world. Flying around the world business class, going to these exotic locations, and on some level that was exciting. The difficulty I found was being an actor is one thing, and becoming a character, that's your job, but it doesn't necessarily make you a very interesting presenter, because presenters in many ways, they act the presenter. And I at the time really sort of wanted to downplay that. I wanted to make sure that all the stuff I did, I meant it. I wanted to, when we turn up at a location, I'd try and find something that really resonated with me. I helped to write the materials and for the pieces to camera, and just really got involved in it. it wasn't glamorous at all, because basically there's 4 of you, 4 guys, and it doesn't matter if you're in front of the camera, you're carrying the tripods and you're putting on your own radio mics and you're doing all that other stuff. You're lugging Jimmy Jibs up hills in southwest Tasmania. So there's no makeup artist or whatever. You really had to look after yourself, and you're on the road for 17 days. So it was an interesting experience, and one that I do not regret, because I don't have any regrets really, because it all leads you to where you are now, and I'm very happy with where I am now. But I just felt that it was a combination of a few things, and it's a nice experience to have up my sleeve, because for a year it was fine. Dave Rafter he's an everyman, suburban bloke. I grew up in Tauranga provinces. I know people like him. There's just a sense of good about him and the family and their aspirations, and the thing that's the thing I recognise in them, and their desire to have a good life and to treat their kids well, and just modest, but have a barbie, have a beer, play a bit of cricket, simple things, which is what the majority of our nations, New Zealand and Australia, do week to week, and are very happy doing it. And that is why the show's resonated, because all the feedback I get is that, despite there being a few things that perhaps come out of left field that might not be so normal, we've managed to sort of just grab the essence of that normality and make it into a 1 hour long drama week after week after week. And we've had 47 episodes have gone to air here in Australia, and our ratings haven't changed in the whole time. The average is pretty much the same as it was when it began. So people turned on and they haven't turned off yet, touch wood. One critic in particular, Graham Blundell, who's probably best known as being Alvin Purple back in the 70s, he writes for The Australian, and he didn't pick it because Underbelly had just come out, which was this big, massive success, brilliantly creative, brilliantly critically acclaimed show. And then Rafters came out, which was the absolute opposite. And you talk about, and he just said that this isn't going to work, and it did, and he has since eaten his words in print on several occasions actually, which is always nice. But you have this concept, well, there's this thing that a lot of production companies and networks talk about, high concept productions, that you've got to have car chases and you've got to have all this action, but ultimately some of the most popular and some of the most resonant films and television shows are just simple love triangles, romantic comedies about love and loss and finding a girl, losing a girl, about getting older, about dealing with the basics of who's been using my toothbrush. And people laugh and they resonate because it's reflecting them, and that's, Shakespeare said it without, it's a bit of a tangent, but hold the mirror up against society, and actually, paraphrasing, but that's a major part of our society. That's grassroots Australia. If I was told, back then that I would be in Australia and having a career with 15 years in Australia and achieving what I've achieved and winning, popularity awards and, critical awards of the AFI and stuff, I just wouldn't have believed it. I really wouldn't have, because it's a long way from Tauranga via the Fortune Theatre and Dunedin and Christchurch and the Court and all that stuff to here. But, I guess that's the reality is if this is what you're meant to do, you just do it, and despite not always being happy about it, you just have to carry on doing it. And I've been in the river too long now to sort of think about getting out until I could, people in their mid-40s, they sometimes change their career direction, and I've invested too much in being an actor that I don't really know if I want to sort of squander that experience and start again, but never say never.